So on tonight's agenda, we'll be discussing with our audiovisual group the ability for live broadcasting of the BOS meetings. And that will be with Jim Davis and Ron Stanley. At 6:40, we will be discussing the budget process for the fiscal year 21 budget. And then at 7 o'clock, we will be going over old and new business. We don't have a scheduled non-public, so we'll see if we need to go into that piece, because I think we do have a few things to discuss.
Yeah, a couple things came up today.
Yeah. So, before we get going, any opening from Sean or Scott?
No.
All right. Then we will actually get this kicked off early and allow our audio-visual group to fill us in on our opportunity to live stream the Board of Selectmen's meetings.
Go ahead, Dave.
Go.
Okay, so I'm just walking into a little bit of new information. I thought I was walking into discussing broadcasting live on Comcast, which apparently is now off the table. You're not looking to do the Comcast piece anyways, which I don't think is really a great idea to broadcast live on Comcast. The expense is just too much because, for instance, the server equipment is already unserviceable. It's still on Windows 7. You would have to bring it up to something that's in service. And their position is you need to buy just a whole new server, and that's probably 10 grand, just buying the server side. So, okay, fine. Not broadcasting live on Comcast, broadcasting live strictly on YouTube, which I think is a good idea. That's the way the entire market is going anyways. They offer a very good, solid platform, and the cost of entry is much lower. Your cost to entry to broadcast live on YouTube in a reasonable manner would entail new cameras, new control surfaces, probably, and a means of sending it to YouTube in real time. The server that you have currently is capable of doing that, although it's still on Windows 7. Basically, any PC, in my opinion, can take a signal and send it to YouTube in real time as long as you have the bandwidth in the building, which apparently you do. And then the cameras and the control surfaces. Cameras, you can spend anywhere from, a few $100 per camera, and have cameras that will produce an image that are superior to these in every way, shape, and form. But if you need to keep the PTZ, which is the pan-tilt zoom, you're going to rise up into the $1,500 to $2,500 per camera, just because you're adding that PTZ feature to it. Probably worth it, considering that seems to be something you guys have been using a lot with the PTZs as it is. So the investment in the cameras I can justify. Control surfaces are not terrible. It may even be that the PTZ control surface that you have currently can be used with new cameras, so that may or may not be a new cost. And then the selector, you would want a new selector. You're probably less than $1,000. Most likely 5 to 7, squishy, depending on what you wanted to put into it. So all in all, the bottom line is that broadcast live on Comcast, very large investment, 10 grand just for a server, probably another 10 grand in cameras. The gentleman that I've spoken to, between new software, new hardware, and everything, it was 25, give or take 5 grand just to broadcast live on Comcast. And that doesn't do you any good because Comcast isn't giving you any new bandwidth to broadcast at higher resolution anyways. So you're not gaining anything. Whereas YouTube, you can stream in however much bandwidth you have for a few grand.
Yeah. And I think really our point right now is to have some sort of option where people can view live.
Right.
We don't have to have every option.
Sure.
So if we have the ability, if we're doing a meeting that we need to Zoom, we have Zoom available, they're able to dial in on that with its limitations.
End user wouldn't be able to do PTZ on their own.
No,
Yeah.
no. This is just. I mean, like right now we're zooming on this laptop
Oh,
here.
you mean like Zoom the platform?
Oh no, yeah,
Oh,
Zoom,
okay.
yeah, the actual play. You know, then if they're not worried about it, they have the mask. We have space to space out in here,
Sure.
and then that option would be, you know, most people, if they really want to do it, they will get a computer,
Yep.
whether it be a computer, a smartphone,
Sure.
a tablet, and that's the greatest part about that is just like the Zoom platform, they have the ability basically on any mobile device to pull
Yeah.
that YouTube up and watch it.
It's an amazing day we live in.
It is, and so right after COVID hit, there was a funeral for a family in town. It was out in Washington. At least half the family was here.
Yep.
We broadcast it. They asked us. We broadcasted at one of the local churches,
Yep.
and I just pulled it up on this, threw it on the screen,
Yep. Yep.
and it was live. Same time. There wasn't a single glitch during that thing, and we were using the same sort of bandwidth to receive it as most people have at their home. So it was just so
Right now-
I think that's the way. I think it's the way to go.
Yeah. The only caveat with that is now we're talking about the bandwidth you used here is actually going to be a little bit different than what you would use with a new system here
Mhm.
because you're talking about resolution. If
Right.
you're broadcasting at 720 or 1080 on this laptop,
Yeah.
with a bit rate, you know, here, you would need a little bit more headroom on,
Yeah.
you know, with bigger cameras
Yeah.
and things of that nature.
No, but I mean, I'm in favor of you getting a cost together and working with Ron and making it happen.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's his money, and I think in the long run, I mean, it's the way to go. Because I mean, we're looking, if things continue the way they are, we're looking at this type of scenario for the next 8 to 12 months
Sure.
still.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you know, cost-wise, you're in a little bit of a pickle because if we replace the cameras with, let's just say, just a cost save, non-PTZ cameras, we're also still down processing that video to send to Comcast for the channel anyways. You're kind of stuck with having to go through control surfaces so that you can, and otherwise what you're doing is you're taking cameras and running two parallel systems.
Right.
So you have to replace both sides at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not a huge
Would we
thing.
even continue uploading it to Comcast?
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean.
But if it's on YouTube, they can record it, they can go back anytime and watch it.
Yeah, but he does that now. It's uploaded to YouTube now. But there's some people that they still enjoy
On the TV?
go on the TV. They're not computer savvy. But those also aren't the people that want to be down here. I mean, I'm not saying they're 100% not.
Right.
But 9 times out of 10, those are not the people that are going to come down to the town office to watch a live meeting anyway. They're not. They just want to see what's going on. At some point, they watch it. You know, when they get up crazy early in the morning and
Right.
it starts. You know.
And really, when you look at it, the cost associated of going to a live stream on YouTube and continuing to broadcast to Comcast, which is going to require down converting the video, that down conversion is actually fairly negligible. I mean, what I was being told was like less than $100 to down convert the video to continue sending to Comcast. So it's really not a huge cost. So.
No, I'm in favor of it.
Me too.
Okay.
Awesome. Great.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Put something together then, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and if you
Okay.
get us a
Please.
detailed, you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
quote on what that's gonna cost, and, so the selectmen can take a vote on it at some point.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Have a good evening.
Thank
You too. Thank you, gentlemen.
Keep it quote, Jim.
Get your quote.
So,
Thank you.
that's good, I don't have the money.
So yeah, we're moving along. So let's see. We still got time. Still waiting for a couple people. Let's see. What came up this week? Oh, the last couple things that came through this afternoon about the water testing.
Right. Yeah, so, the issue with that is, DES sent some correspondence saying that, they hadn't received our post-closure report for 2019, which is due typically in the spring sometime, or the groundwater monitoring data. And I was pretty sure, Peter and I were pretty sure that Terracon, who's our contractor, had already taken care of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that we dealt with, last spring sometime. And DES was saying that they had no record of it, and I'm thinking, well, they're working where only about a third of their people are actually in the office. So I called Terracon, called our consultant there, and said, if you haven't sent this, can you get it over to me so I can send it to them, because we get about $7,900 in grant money for the landfill closure bond. So that was at risk, and as I suspected, he says we sent both those documents to DES in February, as we thought they had.
Mm-hmm.
And when I pushed back on DES saying, well, here you go, I told you I thought we had already sent it. And they said, oh yeah, we were having technical problems with our portal where you upload that data. So there's a very good chance that we did never, receive it. And in any case, it was uploaded to the portal again today. I did send an email back. I haven't got a response yet, asking the folks at DES that, so my check is still coming, right? So we'll see what their response is, but yeah, it was done. And Terracon was a little annoyed with DES because, and I'm sure we're not the only client that has run into issues like this. But they were very responsive once we made them aware of the problem. They took care of it for us. So I think that's settled, and like I said, hopefully I'll get a email tomorrow in the affirmative that we're still getting our $7,900 and change that we were expecting. So that's good news. We also got a check this week from Interlocal Insurance, which is what the town used to use for healthcare, et cetera. So we got a $16,000 check as a kind of a rebate or a refund on our 2016 healthcare costs. So that was kind of an unexpected check. We weren't anticipating that. So that's good news because we are concerned about revenues at this point. Again, Jess isn't here this week, but I am a little concerned that last check we were behind by about $500,000 in revenue on tax collections from our May-June bill. So, but she's not here for me to confirm that.
Right.
Carlene gave me some numbers, but I want to see if that's improved over the last 2 weeks or not. And my concern is that when we were looking at the cash position that we had, we were cutting it extremely close for December. And if we need to do some borrowing to bridge the gap, I'm trying to make sure we get in front of that.
Right.
Because though the interest rates are very low on that sort of thing, there is still a fee for borrowing money. And it takes 2 or 3 weeks to set up a tax anticipation note.
Right.
So I'm trying to stay on top of that, but we have some gaps in the data here that we're trying to fill in.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll keep you abreast of what happens there, and hopefully we can avoid needing to borrow money. But there are some other things right now that I need to address with Jess that could potentially delay when our tax bills go out in the next month or so.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to address them with her and see where she's at with that, because she's got some things where she's holding us up
Okay.
with DRA, so.
All right.
Let's see, the other thing that I took care of this week, was the fuel oil, contract. David asked me to get a third quote from Fraticelli, so Fraticelli came in at 176.9, Chiardelli came in at 179.9, and Hafner's came in at 169.9. So I signed the contract with Hafner's because they had a kind of a deadline when that had to be done to lock it. So that's done, so our fuel oil price moving forward for this season is 169.9. And there's a couple of things on the tanks. They did an inspection with Mark on the tanks, and there's a few things we need to address on them, but they're minor. And then I sent them a schedule on our oil deliveries from last year, so they can start planning in when they need to start scheduling deliveries for us.
Gotcha. Let me think. Just because we mentioned before the meeting, I just want to make sure it's out in public. So we do have about 4 or 5 applicants to fill the other land use position.
Yeah, I think we actually have a half a dozen that
Okay.
we've narrowed it down for at least a first pass. And again, we're trying to get some telephone interviews scheduled with these folks to see if we can shorten that list down to 3 or 4, so we can then schedule face-to-faces.
Mm-hmm.
And based on the face-to-face, hopefully make a decision and make an offer.
I would look at it as, in my opinion, only because it is, and in the discussion, I don't think I need to be one of the deciding factors in hiring. Or I guess we should be some of the final deciding factors. But at the same point, like you said, if you can take a half dozen and whittle it down to 3 good candidates, and those are the 3 we're discussing or meeting with, just to get that second set of ears and eyes on a person, and I'm fine with that. But yeah, and that's a lot of times it's what it comes down to. Even when we've done, like, hired for the DPW, we've asked the department head to whittle down, or we get it and we say, what are your, and then we call on either this person or this person, but we don't sit here and we try not to go through 18 applications for
Yeah.
the people that, like, I've driven a truck,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so I think that's, if there's anything, I think it's pretty much like you said, is that it's going to come down to you whittling down the candidates, and we just have some sort of discussion with them, only because they come under the budget of the town office.
Okay.
And then what was the other piece? Oh, I think it happened last week, but with the other meeting, we didn't get a chance to talk about how did the meeting go with the EMD, fire, and police.
So it went well. I think we gave her some additional information. She knows that we have, a couple of documents that need to be updated as far as our, hazard mitigation plan, our emergency operations plan. So she is already reviewing those, and she had started reviewing those. I had sent her electronic copies a while back. I also, Jim Hicks offered to engage with her so he could kind of get her up to speed, since he's the last EMD that had an extended stay here, and I think has the best knowledge of what's in place downstairs, etc. So her and Jim have connected up, and they're going to have some discussions, and hopefully we can get her up to speed relatively quickly. Still the concern about the distance that she lives away, which is why I still feel that hiring a deputy, I think, is going to be critical if we can find a deputy that's in town. And we did talk a little bit about that in the meeting, because, you know, she does live about an hour plus away, that in the event of an emergency, and depending on if it's a weather-related emergency, she might not even be able to travel very quickly, depending on what the road conditions are to get here, to even get out of her own community.
Mm-hmm.
So having a local resource, I think we all agreed was probably a good idea. So that's something I'd like to still put forward with the selectmen and see if you'd, like to entertain that.
Okay. Well, I think it could be one of those things. I mean, again, one of the reasons it came out is that either the position was never filled, or the person was filling the position and was literally just collecting a check.
Right,
They had no role.
right.
So if we bring somebody on, I think we have to make sure that we're utilizing that person, those funds responsibly, so
Yeah.
that
So it doesn't turn into the local, like, deputy is actually doing,
we don't want the
job of
deputy
the-
doing the EMD, but we don't want to hire a deputy just for emergencies and they collect, 4 checks a year, and if we never have an emergency, they just got 4 checks,
Yeah,
you know.
and I see in this particular situation, because Jessica is so remote,
Mhm.
that this is an opportunity to keep that deputy very much engaged on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Hopefully we'll avoid that situation.
Good. Just because we still have time, if you're
Yeah.
looking through some of the old stuff. So we awarded the RFP, right, for the LED, so that's good.
Right,
We did oil prices. Oh yeah, only because David's not here, it's probably not something, but just, we are gonna have to look at that lease because evidently you said that it's pretty much a done deal that building is being purchased, the current.
so we had a meeting with representatives for the existing owner. He had 2 of his real estate folks at that meeting. The real estate person representing the new owner was here, and then Tim and I, and we had a discussion about renewing the lease on the police station. And they are certainly open to doing that, and we just have to kind of work out some of the details as far as duration. And my feeling is that we really can't do anything that is probably less than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, even because even if it passed, you're looking at,
Right, we still, so even if warrant articles got passed, you still have to award bids, you still have to come up with plans, you still have to get this building down,
Down,
you
right.
still, so I'm looking, realistically, it's probably gonna take 3 years before you're effectively gonna be able to break ground and get another building up.
right.
So their thought was, and they're gonna come back with a proposal, is maybe a 3-year with options for future years built in. The other thing we discussed is Tim is tight on space over there, and we're looking at maybe acquiring some additional space, obviously, at an increase in the cost of the lease, depending on what
Mm-hmm.
amount per square foot they wanna charge. So, it's gonna go up regardless, but I think Tim is just completely out of space over there, to the point where it's almost unsafe.
Well,
Where they have things.
really, I mean, we continue to talk about the fact that there's one entrance,
Right,
there's one door.
right,
I mean, if that doesn't just slap you in the face as being unsafe for a police station, it's got one door.
right.
It doesn't even meet normal safety regulations.
Right.
There's so.
So those are things, details that we're gonna work out. The new owner seems willing and flexible to work with us to come up with something that's, works for them and works for us. And, considering taking over some additional space is not gonna be a problem. That they're gonna have to work with Tim to look at what is the most logical space to use. And, you know, hopefully they thought by the end of October they would have a lease to propose back to us based on those discussions.
Awesome. That's good. Where were we on the, just because the salt shed RFP?
So the salt shed RFP is ready to go. The one thing I do want to confirm is that that second wave of money that we received from the state is actually going to come this year because of COVID and reduced revenues that, you know, pretty much all around at the state level. I just want to make sure they're, you know, they had originally indicated that they were committed to doing that, but, you know, that was 4 months ago.
Right.
So, you know, my understanding is that, just to give you an example, what the state is facing is, last I heard, room and meals tax for the state was 51% of what it was last year.
Yeah.
So some of our state aid is undoubtedly gonna get impacted. We just don't know what and when. But I think that commitment for the second wave of $75,000 that we used for the streetlight upgrades and that we targeted for the salt shed, I believe is still gonna come. And that would probably arrive sometime in October. That's when it arrived last year.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, and like David said, I know that last year we could count it as unanticipated, but this year it's got to be in our budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so the salt shed RFP is
Ready.
as far as I'm concerned, it's ready to go, although
Yeah.
you guys never actually voted on it to, I think David had some, some issues with it. But, it wouldn't take much to get it ready and out the door.
We can look at that next week, or,
Yeah, I mean, I think I might have already sent a copy to you guys electronically, but I'll be happy to send another copy.
Yeah.
Just so you can review it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, I lost all my emails off of my phone to go back and look at questions I had about other stuff that had been coming up. Because we still had about 10 minutes.
Yep.
Sean, did you have? You said you had some questions.
well, I asked about the land use.
Okay.
Like,
alright.
and then you brought it up again. I guess the drought papers that we got, you know,
Mhm.
like that, it's not getting any better.
It
So
is.
I was wondering at what point do we impose restrictions or just ask? I don't know.
So, you know, I think there are a lot of towns like us that are just recommending voluntary conservation. Here we're a little different. We don't have a public water supply. It's, you know, people's own personal private wells.
Mm-hmm.
We are all drawing off the same aquifer, so at some point the water table is gonna get low enough where people might start getting impacted. I haven't heard of a single case yet.
Which I'm surprised because a few years ago we had quite a few people whose
Yeah.
wells were very low or.
So
Yeah.
in this area in general, we're about 9 inches below average rainfall. Manchester is 12 inches below normal. That's significant.
Yeah.
That's a lot of rain that we haven't received, so, you know, and again, it's up to the board on whether you wanna make it voluntary. I think we've got information up on the website to let people know what the situation is and that they should be conserving and being careful how they use their well water. And honestly, if you put a mandatory restriction in, how are we gonna enforce it?
Yeah. Yeah. We go back to that. It's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've done we've done well to get it out there. The state has been extremely vocal in putting it out there.
Yeah.
You know, like right now, I mean, what the governor actually said, which was some weird ones, but zero, burning. They don't even recommend outdoor smoking, but you can still have a fire at a campground as long as you're cooking. So you can still burn stuff outside at a public campground.
Yeah.
So I guess if but yeah, they said, well, it's like first time in some ridiculous amount that the governor actually put out the mandate
Yeah.
instead of just the local.
Yeah. Yeah, they're anticipating weather forecast is the next couple of days we might get as much as 2 inches of rain is what they're hoping for. So,
Yeah.
but that doesn't begin to close the deficits.
No, because we're supposed to be getting anyway, and it's really all goes back to the fact of we had a early winter and then not much snow at the latter half. It ended quickly on us.
Yeah.
So I think so far we've been very lucky that we haven't heard people's wells going dry because there wasn't much groundwater to start with that we normally get from the thaws. It was so early. So
Yeah. It's a little scary when you drive past some of the rivers and all you see is rocks. You don't see much water.
yeah, well, just over I come up and through the backside of Ringe out to 119, and you turn right there. There's a pond that's right there, and I mean you look out and it's just mud. I mean, good 100 yards into the water that you normally don't see,
Yeah.
and all of them over there are getting pretty low. So Jack keeps leaving us and coming back.
He's back.
He is. Just trying to think. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else
I
off
can't
the
think.
top of my head. I gotta release
Oh.
the fire truck. I'm trying to find other websites where we can promote it, but I haven't had much luck coming up with anything. But I do wanna put it back up on Municipid, because I don't wanna have to worry about it when the snow flies.
Right.
I want it gone.
Only again because I can't go back and look
Yeah.
before we go into this. Do you have the dates that the school already blocked off for us? Just because when we start discussing our time frame, because I know they already blocked us off for the deliberative session. I think they blocked us off for the budget hearing, which we normally don't hold there, but we might this year based on current situation.
Yeah,
But I know they marked off 3 dates for us already and a snow date.
okay, yeah, I saw the email from Bob Romerl regarding the school schedule for their budget. I didn't see anything specific to our.
Maybe I misunderstood. I thought those were the dates they had marked off
Yeah, for us.
for us.
Yeah, no, I think those were for the SAU.
Sean, do you, by chance, you have it on your phone?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get Bob's on my personal email, so I was looking. So I always take it and forward it over to my other one.
Alright. So, you want me just to read the email?
Yeah, just go ahead and read it out.
So this is from Bob. Scott, just thought I would share the school district's plans with you to allow scheduling of the town's 2021 meetings. Best regards, Bob. And so Miss Casey had sent over public budget hearing scheduled for January 4th, 2021, deliberative session scheduled for February 3rd, 2021, with a snow date of February 4th, and voting day March 9th.
And again, I think that's for the SAU.
It seemed to, the context I don't know if you wanna check it out, it seemed to be all
Yeah.
about the town.
Okay, I'll double check.
We're working on the fiscal year 2022. Dr. Martin would like to confirm the following dates we have scheduled on the timeline. So yeah, maybe it is for the school. I don't know, but I kind of read into it the same way that Bob sent that to us, telling us.
So maybe we get
But it-
clarification.
Yeah.
on-
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, we're gonna have to look at. So it may have been one of those things of reaching out to them and scheduling because they're gonna be scheduling their calendar. So maybe that was
Yeah.
what they were trying to tell us.
Well, I'll close that up with them and make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, because those wouldn't even be our normal nights. So one's on because that's a Monday and a Wednesday, Thursday that they scheduled, and they know we do our stuff on Tuesdays.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
that must be the schools.
okay,
But I think it maybe just been a heads up that we probably need to get some dates on there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and unmute our friends.
Okay.
Well, I was
Hey,
gonna
John,
unmute Jack, but Jack muted himself, so I can't do anything about that.
Jack seems to be struggling. He's been sending me emails.
Okay.
He's using Zoom in a browser, and he says it doesn't allow him to raise his hand.
Okay. Well,
He knows that you muted the meeting.
yeah. Well, right now I've got everyone unmuted, so we'll see how that goes. But right now, like I said, Jack's got himself muted and camera off, so I can't unmute him because he's got himself muted. So
Nice.
yeah. Do you expect any of your compatriots on along with you?
Frank, the only one that replied, I sent out notice once, Mr. Butcher sent out the meeting information. Jack was the only one that replied. I don't know if the other two intend to show up at 6:40, which is in a minute.
Yeah.
Or whether they intend to dial in.
Okay.
So I'm leaning towards they're not coming in.
All right.
I'll get in touch with them again and make sure they understand it's budget season.
Gotcha.
Jack says he does not have himself muted. So I'm on an iPad, so I don't
Okay.
think it's
All
problem.
right. I got him back.
Thank you.
How are you, Jack?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
Very good.
Alrighty.
By the way, my well did run dry.
Oh,
Did it?
Just so you have it for the record.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you have to impose a town-wide ban or restriction, but fortunately I have a backup, so I'm working fine.
You don't actually live in New Ipswich, though. Everybody knows that.
I know, I'm an outlander. I said that from day one. I gotta go through 3 counties, 2 towns, and 2 states to get to the town hall. Are we gonna address some questions on the materials that Scott sent us tonight, or are we just gonna discuss the process?
Well, I think, certainly if you have issues with the year-to-date expenditures that I sent out earlier, my biggest concern is I wanted everybody to have the SB2 calendar for 2021. So we can plot our plan and make sure we're not encroaching on too many deadlines like we did last year. I want to try to keep us moving forward so we don't end up in a time crunch toward the end, because that's never fun. So I wanted to,
No.
everyone
And we
to.
missed- And we missed that window on the bond for the police station as well. so-
Correct.
Exactly. So, so I wanted everyone to have the calendar, so we know where we need to be and what needs to be done. And the other concerns that I have, I wanted everyone to see where we were year to date, as of today with the expenditures. Obviously, we have some issues in some line items where we're overspent, and in others where we're in very good shape. I mean, that's overall the town budget. We're in very good shape, I would say, for this time of year. But we do have some departments like DPW. We had a bunch of unexpected repairs this year that just drove the repair budget, off the cliff, unfortunately, because some of the repairs were major, as in, tens of thousands of dollars. And so that was unanticipated, but luckily, because we've had a relatively quiet year in other respects, we're able to absorb that so far.
We got 16,000 from that refund, right?
Well, we did, and we also, when we sold the old front-end loader about a month ago, we originally were gonna get $5,000 for that in trade-in value. We ended up selling it for $19,300. So that came into the general fund as well, so that was a nice plus that we weren't anticipating.
So how are revenues in general, considering,
So revenues, as of about 2.5 weeks ago, our revenues were off by about $500,000, and most of that was property tax revenues. So our
Are they the usual suspects, Scott?
Not to that extent. I mean, we certainly have the usual suspects, but I was hoping this week to be able to get from the tax collector an up-to-date list on the delinquencies to see what's happening. I think there are a lot of new people that are having issues because of job losses related to COVID-19 that
Sure.
weren't on the list before. Because $500,000, that's a lot of money to be short right now, this time of year. And,
My recollection is we ran about $250,000 short each year, so based on those usual suspects.
right. So, and our tax bills actually went out a bit early in the spring, about a week earlier than they usually do, so people had more time to pay them. And, so I'm certainly concerned. I'm concerned about what the implications are, and whether, it's a situation where, we have to identify who the people are and start setting up payment plans for them to be able to, catch up, et cetera. So that's a discussion I have to have with her, and unfortunately, she has not been very available recently, and when she is here, she's playing catch up. Trying to keep her head above water. We'll have to see where that leads us, but as of right now, before the meeting started, I mentioned to the selectmen that I am concerned that, we may find ourselves in a position where we have to borrow before the end of the year to pay our obligations. And the biggest one is the school. We pay the school $776,000 every month, and that's a big chunk of money to have to come up with. Right now,
I guess how do we do borrowing? Is that something we've got a line of credit set up for, or will we have to do?
So you have to go out and get what they call a tax anticipation note, and I'm not sure what lenders we might use for that, because we're a municipality. The interest rate is going to be very reasonable, but it's still interest that we don't have in our budget. So we have to absorb the interest payment somewhere as well. So we're hoping to avoid that. I had the treasurer and our accounting clerk basically plot out for me what our cash requirements planning was between now and December 31st, and what our anticipated revenues are. And right now, we're hoping that it's gonna be a close, but a kind of a break-even situation. Now, we do have the tax bills going out in December, and, you know, many times we get a big chunk of money in because people with mortgages that have money in escrow, the banks pay those right away. It's not like they wait till the last day that the taxes are due. It's usually when they see the bill, they pay it. So we might get a big influx of money in December anyway, but we can't really count on that. We're just looking at historical data, and,
Well, that's kicking the can down the road too, because
What-
that doesn't address the fact that it's still in arrears.
right, correct. So we're gonna be looking at all those things, and, honestly, we're gonna be looking at it weekly from now to the end of the year, to make sure, we're on track.
I have a question about the budget report you sent today, and thank you very much for doing that.
Yep,
In going through it, I sort of looked at the deficit column, the balance remaining,
yep,
quickly. And one of the things that struck me was that several of the line items in the operating budget for current year budgeted are all zeros, when I am pretty sure, now granted, I'm getting old and might be forgetful, but for example, in the pool budget, we did allocate funds for repair of some of that concrete. I remember the discussion. And it's showing $0 for current year budget. Is this a problem that we're seeing from last year? I remember we had something similar.
so I'd have to go back and check to make sure that, that the approved budget numbers were entered into the accounting system. And honestly, they were, I did most of that myself, so I'd be very curious as to if something was missing. Because I know we have run into a couple of glitches where you know, things were maybe misposted somewhere. And you know, we go back, well, we do it throughout the year, but certainly as we get toward the end of the year, that's when the treasurer and our accounting clerk go back and find some of those things that might have been posted to the wrong account and correct them. So that's kind of a normal quality control process that they go through.
It may be I'm misreading it, Scott. Don't go diving into a deep repair, because I just did a quick look up, and I did find the section for the pools where their budget numbers are there. It's on page, just for your reference, page 12. But then there's another line item, and I'm not sure if this is a separate or segregated account, on page 16 for the pool. Page 18, where there's a whole bunch of operating budget line items for pool, and they're all $0. So maybe this is just the way it's structured, and maybe it's okay. So I was just trying to figure out if I was looking at it wrong, or if we didn't have the budgeted numbers.
Yeah, so the, yeah, page 18 is kind of redundant. So it's really the page 12 numbers.
Except there's a deficit there, because an expenditure showed up on that line item in one of those.
Right, and that might be a misposting.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
Yeah,
some,
the green,
yeah, those are, go ahead, Mark.
that's the green center. That, I don't know why that would be under the pool in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that's, that may be, and again, that may be how the accounts were set up in BMSI, so that's something that Roger's gonna have to address.
Can you go to page 19? There are another set of pool budget items, and they're all negative because nothing was budgeted for.
No, because that's the revolving account. So that's money that sits there and they're able to spend out of it.
Right,
And they
so,
spent it all?
No.
no, so in other words, you're not seeing the beginning balance there, and again, it's an accounting, issue.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. Right, you're only seeing the expenditures, you're not,
That was my question.
yeah, you're not seeing the offsetting, balance or revenue that has come in.
because it's,
Have we seen extraordinary expenses in the area of COVID supplies? Because I looked at the election budget, and I didn't see anything that looked like it either accounted for or factored that in. Did we get that funded from the state, so we didn't have to budget it?
So, yes, so we got some money back through the CARES Act, money that came from the federal government to the state, and then from the state out through various departments, and in this case, the election money came from the Secretary of State's office. So we did get, we did apply for a grant, and we just sent in our first reimbursement for the expenses associated with the primary.
Yep.
So we should be getting reimbursement for that. We'll be doing it again for the general election. In addition to that, many of the supplies that we needed came from the Secretary of State's office directly, so it didn't run through our budget. But the things like gloves, ballot sleeves, pens, disposable pens, that sort of thing, they gave us an allocation that we then had to go and pick up. But that was all funded through the Secretary of State's office, so there was no expenditure on our part, and it doesn't show up in our budget anywhere.
Are there any other departments you think might show a COVID cost associated?
So we had some miscellaneous expenses, mostly, getting some additional gloves and hand sanitizer. But to be honest with you, it amounted to probably less than $1,000. And the way we looked at the grant opportunities that were presented to us, there were some minimum thresholds. FEMA, all of this money, again, coming from the federal government, actually comes through the FEMA system. And you had to have like a $3,300 minimum to apply for some of the money. And it just didn't make sense. There's a 26-page long application, and we were, part of the other criteria is it going to force you to be outside of your overall town budget? And we don't have any expense that really, pushed us over, as far as an overall bottom line for the town. Some communities had literally tens of thousands of dollars worth of COVID-related expenses. We just don't have that here. There was one point where they were trying to, in the last few weeks actually, because there's a lot of towns that have not taken advantage of some of this money. And you'll hear even on the national news that there's still something like $330 billion out there from the CARES Act that has not been utilized, and they're wondering why. So then they started floating the idea that you could charge off your entire public safety budget, so fire, police, ambulance if you have it, to this grant program. And I was very skeptical as to, they made it sound like regardless, you could almost make anything COVID related, right? And so they were really kind of pushing this, and I literally had the state chasing me saying, why haven't you filled out the grant application? And I said, I'm very uncomfortable with the fact that you're making it sound like almost anything is eligible for reimbursement. And I said, I said, if you can kind of prove that to me, I'll be happy to take the money. I said, but I don't want to have FEMA come back and do an audit at some point, and me need to write a check to reimburse for all the money that I just took. And sure enough.
And what was the state's advice and counsel?
Well, they were, they came between the state and the New Hampshire Municipal Association. They were kind of relaxing the criteria, if you will, in their minds. However, word got out there, and the U.S. Treasury sent us some advisory. And as I suspected, if we could not prove that a significant part of our labor and other operational items in the police, fire, etc., were directly related to COVID or COVID prevention, then basically we weren't eligible for the money. So so my skepticism turned out to be well-founded.
yeah. And if you
Well, and that's good. That's good.
and if you happen to read the newspaper today, It seems that the schools got caught up in that exact thing, that they thought they were going to get all this money from FEMA for COVID-related expenses and or through this CARES Act, and FEMA just came back and said that school is not an emergency.
Yeah, I saw that, John.
So
Good point. And,
so they're stuck with a pretty big paycheck right now.
well, but is that gonna dribble back to us? Clearly, it's been dribbled back to us in the context of the school budget, but does that mean, as a whole, we have to contemplate that issue associated with our budget?
I think much like it's stated, they would have to come to the town and say that they were looking to do that, so that the town could properly apply for those funds through the next Gopher funding, because the other funding that they mentioned is closed.
Yeah,
So we would have to do the Gopher funding, and that next one comes around, I think, at the end of the year or something. Or there's one in October, ends at like October 15th. But they would have to at least let us know, because as a town, we have not encumbered enough issues that it's worth our applying. It's been very, very small stuff.
that we get audited and have to pay it back, no.
Right.
Right.
Okay, yeah, because Condell in that same newspaper today, I think, reported that they were looking at $500,000 of costs associated, or some large, very significant amount, I don't recall the actual number.
It was worse than that.
Associated with the schools getting to safety levels for COVID. And I'm just worried, is Messina going to see the same thing?
I have no idea.
Yeah, me neither. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
basically,
have another question. On that form on page 1, you have the BOS retirement line item.
yep.
We didn't budget anything for that? Is that going into the retirement fund, or is that?
No, that, honestly, that should have been budgeted. I mean, we certainly put a percentage in there when we did the budget last year. Why it's not in the accounting system, but that was budgeted.
Okay.
And that's my retirement, so I'm very, very much aware.
Well, it appears to have gotten paid, so I don't think that's at risk. The problem is
Yeah.
it didn't appear to budget for it, or at least in this, it didn't show it, so.
No, we
Yeah.
definitely. But oh, and Jack, I just quickly looked. $3 million is what Conval
Yeah,
spent.
I thought it was bigger. When I said 500,000, I think I got tripped up on the tax delinquency. So
Yeah.
it's a huge number. That's what I'm a little worried about.
Right.
So, is there any way we can reach out to the school committee or anybody that can give us a heads up so that this is not going to come as a surprise?
Well, I can certainly call the business manager up at the SAU and see what's cooking.
Yeah. But again,
Ask
I
him
yeah.
what does his excessive costs look like? Are they in the $3 million range? God, I hope not.
But again, I think it would also have to be on them. They can't just come to us and ask for the money, because they didn't get it.
Well, I was
Because
just thinking about that whole thing about exceptional FEMA's one thing, right? This is the thing with the federal government. There are a variety of funnels of money you can go for. Can you get that money, for example, compensated under the CARES Act and get Sununu allocated for exceptional costs associated with providing safety in the schools? I
right.
don't know. I just don't think we should be, I just don't want to be caught surprised with
Yeah.
a huge bill that's either going to affect our school tax or our property tax, or our town tax, I should say.
Yeah.
Without at least being aware of it and trying to find out ahead of time.
Yeah, well, I'll give the SAU a call and see what their thoughts are on this.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So,
So the other thing that if the Finance Advisory Committee members aren't already aware, the New Hampshire retirement system percentage that we're gonna have to pay is gonna go up on July 1st for both Group 1 and Group 2 employees. So when we're doing budgeting this year, it's gonna have to be stepped, for the first 6 months of the year, and then the second 6 months, the retirement costs are gonna be anywhere from 19 to 30% higher, depending on which group we're talking about.
I guess you're not going to retire. I guess you're not going to retire then.
So,
Yeah,
well, to be
wow,
fully
wow,
vested, I'm,
30%.
yeah, it's significant.
Huge.
Yeah, it
And
is.
and what was the rationale behind that increase in the cost?
Well, they're saying they don't have enough funding to cover their obligations. I mean, I did hear another rumor that by 2030, they're supposed to have the towns picking up the entire cost of the retirement program. So they won't be getting funding from the state to subsidize it. So that's gonna be very interesting to see how that works out over time. Luckily, I'll be retired by
The
then.
negative impact that's gonna escalate through the entire system, including looking at salaries, because that's gonna be a function of how you calculate the retirement cost.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Jack, does the town pay for the pensions of all former employees? While
I'm
they're
gonna ask that question to somebody who's smarter than me, Mark.
Yeah.
I think that was where to
Yeah,
start.
yeah,
I'm
I,
sorry,
honestly,
did I say Jack?
so, I mean, that's not something we budget for, so I think that once we've paid in to the system, if somebody decides to retire, we do have a couple of employees that were kind of grandfathered under kind of an extended health care where we are still the vehicle for them to get their health care. Although they pay 100% of it, but there's certainly some administrative costs for us to manage that for them. But I think we have one that might be dropping off this year because they're gonna be old enough to go on Medicare. But I think we have another one that's still gonna carry forward. That we have.
But my question was,
Yeah.
do we pay pensions throughout retirement, or do we only
No.
pay in
Only,
until they retire?
well, only while they're active employees here.
Right,
Right, yeah.
The
So,
answer-
Once they start
Retirement
drawing, they
Association.
draw for life, right? And
Yeah,
And if they're drawing for life, are we subsidizing that draw? It sounds like down the road, the answer is yes.
No,
Right now,
no.
well,
No, once they pay in while they work, we pay in while they work. Once they either stop working or retire, we stop paying. Then everything comes from the New Hampshire retirement system.
okay, thanks.
yeah, the other question, because I want to be able to give my department head some guidance that I had for tonight is, to start thinking about what we're gonna do for, COLA or merit increases, if we have a percentage in mind. And, this may be something where we give them some initial guidance so that they can do their planning when they're putting their budgets together for us to review. And we may have to tweak them later, depending on how all the numbers work out. Are we gonna be looking at a 2, 2.5, 3% pool to then spread around depending on, how their performance reviews are and how we wanna adjust them for merit? But do we wanna come out with a sort of a pool of money at a certain percentage of total labor, and then increase or decrease that for individuals based on their performance evaluation? I mean, we did a bit of that last year, but I'd like to be able to give people some guidance so when they're putting their initial budgets together to present to us that we have a starting point.
My suggestion would be a 3% pool of total labor dollars. But again, that's a pool.
Yeah.
So, and again, I look at it as where they say, well, we want to reward people. Well, if you give someone a 4, that means you got to give someone else a 2, and then the 2 of them equal a 3 each. It's that
Right,
kind of piece.
And I'm gonna be having that discussion with the department heads tomorrow, because this is performance evaluation time. I've already asked them to have all their performance reviews done by the end of November, so that we know where people stand and, know what the salary impact might be, or wage impact.
By the way, we have an employee appreciation fund that had a couple of grand in it, I think.
Yep.
Doesn't appear that we've spent very much of it, and we're almost through the year, so.
So, well, typically, most of that is spent on the holiday party, Jack. So that's, yeah, so around Christmas time, that's where most of that gets spent. We did spend a bit, probably a few $100 when Laurie Radiola left, we had a little going away luncheon for her. But I think that's all that's been spent so far.
The
I thought
Christmas
that was
party,
something that you could give them like a dinner for two award, you know, $150, they could go out to dinner or something.
Well, you know, I mean, one of the concerns I had is some towns have already canceled their holiday parties because of COVID. I mean, we usually do it right here in this room, and it's usually pretty crowded when you're trying to get all the employees in here. You know, so my question was, do we still want to hold something like that, or do we, you know, the other thing that we typically do, along with the holiday lunch is we give them, you know, like a $50 gift card to Market Basket as well. And do we just do a gift card this year, forget the party, and just increase the amount of the gift card
I think-
in lieu of a holiday luncheon?
I think that's gonna be the smart idea, to just do
I
a,
think that is prudent, I
Yeah.
agree.
I think that's just
last
a,
year, a lot of food was donated to the Christmas party. People brought in food, so there
Yes.
wasn't a big Chinese food order or anything like there usually is.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Well, anything we can do to help the morale of the folks is fine, as long as it doesn't run us broke, kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Sounds like a good idea.
yeah, we do the math to make sure that we were stayed within budget.
Yep, yep. So on a procedural question, you know, obviously last year we took down probably a quarter of the forest in New Ipswich with paper. Are we going to, because of the remote nature of what we're doing now, use spreadsheets for the current budget, the projected budget, you know, those forms that we looked at each time we went through a department budget?
So, that is my plan. I've been trying to export the budget sheets out to Excel from BMSI, and for some reason it is not letting me create the budget sheets. It's giving me last year's budget sheets. It's not letting me create the budget sheets for fiscal year 2021, so I'm gonna have to talk to BMSI to understand what changed that I'm not able to give everybody an electronic spreadsheet to fill out. And,
We have last year's,
yeah,
and it's a matter of moving the columns over.
right, that's all it should be. That's exactly right. You can pick the columns you want and just move them, but it's not populating the columns correctly. It's putting the wrong data in the wrong columns, or wrong year's data, I should say, in the wrong columns, but, so we'll get that fixed, though. That should be an easy fix.
Okay.
Is he referring to the spreadsheet?
Yeah.
I've got them now with the columns moved over. If
Okay.
you want me to, I'll email it to you.
Mr. Lage, you've
Okay.
been here
Yeah.
all night?
No,
Yes! Yes!
we did, one thing to double check that we did, I remember last year when we were sitting here at the budget hearing that night, that's when we suddenly realized that we had a bunch of
Glitches.
glitches in
Yeah.
the spreadsheet. So as we go through, those are some of the ones we need to just double check a few so
The
that
only
we,
thing that I double checked was to make sure that the 2020 budget was correct.
yeah. Well, that's it. But there was like a calculation that like once the budget was correct, but then it didn't calculate down properly or something. So
Okay.
it's just something as we look ahead, especially if you're going to disappear on a cruise again right at budget season.
Any plans?
They generate quickly.
Yeah, that's it.
So Mark, are you gonna be our chairman for the budget committee this year?
We don't have a quorum, so we can't decide
Yeah.
that tonight.
Got it. Well, I don't know, we can get 50% of the vote.
It's not enough. It's gotta be a super majority.
Did you just make that up?
Did do you gentlemen have any other questions about the budget going forward?
No, I'm good.
Awesome.
Again, just look forward to the spreadsheets and so we can
Yep,
work from remote.
yeah.
Do you expect to have any budgets as soon as next week?
I don't think we're gonna have any departments that are gonna be ready to present their budget. I'm thinking 2 weeks from tonight will be the first. And I'll be putting a schedule out as well. So when I get the spreadsheets ready, I will send a spreadsheet to everybody on what the schedule's gonna look like. And I'm expecting, much like last year, that people are gonna come back and give me reasons why theirs has to be moved in, out, in time. So we'll consider it a living document for the first couple of passes.
Okay. Look forward to that.
Okay?
One housekeeping note, can we point the camera at maybe Scott instead of Sean next time?
You don't like looking at Sean?
Just so quiet and learning so much.
I didn't say that.
It's better than looking at David, for God's sake.
I can move, just tell me where.
Yeah.
No, what I will plan to do is, the next meeting I will sit closer to and I will turn the computer as the speaker is speaking. That way you're looking at whoever's
You can do
speaking.
that, or turn it and have the speaker sit in a certain spot at the desk, and that way you're good to go.
Well,
Whoever's queued up can just sit there.
I'll bring in a lazy Susan. How about that? All right. Okay. All right. Then I believe that's all we had for that discussion. Who we got here? I'm not sure who that is. They didn't want to stay though. Jason,
Mr.
did
Summer?
you have something for us, or just coming to listen?
Just observing.
Oh,
Maybe at
awesome.
the end of the meeting, I might. have
Okay,
something.
awesome. All right. So we went.
Nicole, is that you?
No. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, we got a quorum.
All right.
You're muted.
Yeah, I think John has to unmute her.
No, I think she needs to do it. She says it's John.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Well, he's trying.
Into it.
There she
There
is.
we go.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you, meeting adjourned.
All right.
A lot of work.
I plan to be a chairperson for the
Oh,
budget
Hmm.
cycle 2021. Do you second that?
Yeah.
No.
All right. All right. So I'm gonna mute everybody. Have a good night. They asked earlier, why'd you mute all of us? Now they know. So we did go over quite a bit of the old business and such, and some of the new business, because our beginning went very quickly.
Yeah, I'll catch up.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay. So unless, David, you have something, then I think we had a couple things come through today that we are going to have to go into a non-public over that was not initially planned, because it came through today.
The old and new, I don't want to repeat. if
Nope,
I-
go ahead. Yeah, you can ask.
But where are we with the salt shed RFPs?
So the salt shed RFP is ready to go. I mean, I think the three of you need to review it one more time. I'm gonna email it out to you again tomorrow if you wanna review it, but it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's ready to go unless you wanna tweak it.
I would say at this point, let it go out.
Let it go.
Tweak
No,
things afterwards if
and the
we
only
have to.
concern Scott had was
Okay.
just if by chance we thought we weren't going to have the additional funds coming in, or we were in a position of deficit, because right now this year's income is down considerably for taxes.
Income is down. Do we have figures?
The figures I gave about 2 weeks ago, I think, was that we were off by about $500,000 in revenue, and most of that is property tax revenue. Vehicle registrations, et cetera, are actually up a bit.
Yeah.
I was gonna try to get with Jessica to see where we're at today, but unfortunately she has been out ill part of last week, every day so far this week. So she hasn't been available to be able to confirm those numbers. And I also wanted to understand you know, as Jack pointed out earlier, is it the usual suspects that aren't paying their tax bill, or do we have a whole new wave of people? And I think we're gonna find that there's some additional people that aren't able to pay their taxes because COVID-related job losses, et cetera. But I don't know that until I
Yeah.
get with Jessica and have her print out a report. And those are people we're gonna have to reach out to see, you know, if we start a payment plan with them or something to get them back on track. We, between Carleen and Roger and I, you know, I'm trying to get them to keep track of where we're at, do cash requirements planning out to the end of the calendar year, because I'm trying to avoid being in a situation where we might have to borrow.
That's what my question though from last time was.
Yep.
You were gonna find out where we are with the accounts with
Right.
cash on hand.
Right, so, and I have not been able to do that.
Is that something Colleen can?
So, well, Carleen and Roger, I had asked them to be able to produce those reports weekly for me, and that did not happen. Further complicated by the fact that Roger took last week off for vacation and apparently traveled out of the country and is now quarantining for the next 2 weeks. And I wish he had made that clear to me before he went on his vacation. So he's not available, so I'm gonna have to rely on Carleen, and Carleen is typically in here a half a day, most days of the week. But again, she has a limited view into things. We really need Roger here to do that.
But as far as the cash on hand, that should be something Colleen would have.
Carleen can do that.
Yeah, we could just get that report.
Yep.
And, did we receive confirmation from DRA that that was going to be funded? I
What?
thought there was the other
75,000?
Yeah,
So 4 months ago, yes, that was the commitment that the second wave was gonna come regardless of COVID. However, I wanna confirm that.
okay,
It's supposed to be arriving sometime in October, and that's when it came last year. So I want to, you know, I want to be sure that in fact it is going to arrive.
but I don't know if you guys are in agreement, I think that that RFP should go out. It
Oh,
does
yeah.
Typically have the verbiage in there, you know,
Yeah,
we have.
and I'm fine with that. We can
Yeah.
send it out. You had the most questions on the blocks and such like that. So if you're good with it, then I'm fine with sending it out.
Me too.
All right.
Where are we gonna be with, Parks and Rec Director? We had appointed her as an interim, but we've never,
So I didn't. That someone actually asked me that recently. So I guess it really comes down to whether Shauna wants to take that on as a full-time position going forward, or whether we need to post to look for a new Parks and Rec director. So that would be basically where we sit.
okay,
So whether we need to.
I think we could you reach out to her and see if that's
Mhm.
something she's interested in?
Thank you.
And then the fire truck, have we got that out there?
He says reposting it.
Repost, okay,
Yeah.
good, alright,
And then we also, just to, you'll catch up on the notes, but we did discuss the police building lease and all the things going through with that, so.
I'll catch up with you after on that.
All right.
You just mentioned. Was the non-public regarding the legal notice we received today? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Do you have anything for us before we go non-public? Yes,
Well,
sir.
I was curious, I don't read the local news.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what the impact of that meeting over on Lock Road. Like, has there been a major spike? Has there been COVID cases? Has anything?
No, it's, as of right now, the last thing I looked at is, in that time frame to right now, there have been 2 total additional cases. One was kind of, I don't think it was related to that. I don't even know if the current one's related to it. It's kind of very hard to even say that you've pinned anything to one spot, one event. But as of, no, we have not. And whether that be that they were more careful, whether our town was more careful due to the putting it out in the public, however it happened, whether they didn't mix into the public nearly as much because of the spotlight that was brought to it, or whether we just, things worked out well for us. But there was not an additional spike due to that event happening up on Lock Road.
Because I was here at the meeting when they were, the public meeting,
Right.
and I'll have to say, I was shocked how readily people are willing to just toss out the Constitution and personal property rights. It was, and I still am to this day, like with our governor now, and I'm glad, I don't remember if it was one of you who said that you wish that the governor gave you power to enforce COVID lockdowns or whatever. I'm really glad that he hasn't. I'm
Well,
disappointed that he's threw out the Constitution and has ruled by edict since March. And I don't know, it's not a light thing. It seems like everyone who takes a public office swears to uphold that Constitution, and poof.
Well, I think that the problem we had, and I will, is there were 2 separate issues that kept being brought up in this room and that kept being blurred in social media and in the public opinion, which was public safety and religious freedom, private property. At no point did we ask anyone to not hold the event.
Right.
All we asked them to do was to follow all the recommended safety precautions that the CDC and the New Hampshire State epidemiologist, or however you want to pronounce it, put out there. So we were trying to keep those separate. Unfortunately, when you bring public opinion in, you bring social media in, and you just bring the feelings of people in, things get very blurred and very cloudy. And when we had a room that was full, it kept getting very blurry quickly. And that's why we kept muting the computer and everything else. So all we had asked, and all we were asking that entire time was, will you keep our people safe?
Yeah.
We never once asked them, don't hold this event.
And that's why I didn't jump in the mayhem,
Right.
because my primary concern was that the government is gonna come in and say,
You can't hold
do
it.
this. And that, to me, is, and even going forward, I mean, I'm just shocked that
Yeah,
we're
and then-
still living under this kind of a restrictive lifestyle.
Yeah, and then even with the signs that went out, I think, again, the reason that was a recommendation is that people knew they were coming into a community where we did not know where some of our visitors were coming from.
That's
And-
always the case.
And well, but this was a little larger, I mean, this
Maybe a little bit.
yeah.
If you
Yeah.
think about it logically, you go to Market Basket, there could be 10 people from California, 3 from New York.
Right.
You have no idea. And the whole thing with the virus, if it's in the air, 6 feet social distance. But what happens when I walk over here?
Right.
What happened to the virus that was here that I left? I mean, the whole thing is just like,
But that's why we were just, our discussion as the select board was, will you follow the safety precautions? We never once brought up religious freedom or don't hold it or it's not, or it's private. It was, we knew day one, it's private property and it's a religious event. That's not for us to say you can or can't. Our point 100% was, will you keep the people safe that we
To
have
whatever
taken the
degree.
vote, have taken the oath that we will keep you safe. So that was our point, and that's and
And
luckily,
that's-
and it happened. Everyone's safe, and unfortunately, and it was very sad that it ended on such a sour note on that last day, with the accident that happened. But that was a crazy freak weather thing that was outrageous. So I look at it
I
as
don't know about the guy who was there.
he's
I'm more looking like,
Yeah.
man, this country, I mean, I hear you guys talking about the budget and COVID comes in, we're just flushing this country right down the toilet. For what?
Well.
This is crazy.
How do you,
Anyways.
Jason, I didn't wanna delve into this, I'm trying to bite my tongue here just so we can.
Well, you don't have to bite your tongue, David, you're amongst friends.
No, I just mean because we were doing other things, but first of all, you had said that, the board had said that, we wish we had more power, to enforce the COVID. I think what we were saying was, the governor would send out executive orders of, this is what you need to do, but would not indicate who would be enforcing that. And it wasn't until, I think, 3 days before the event that they came out and they said, this has to happen, and if you don't, then these were the ramifications. Before that, it was, well, you need to practice,
Mhm. Which is how it should be.
Right.
In fact, I think like South Dakota governor had it right. People don't wanna die. You don't, now we're possibly looking at a shortage of property taxes because people were laid off because their lives and businesses were deemed unessential. And it's looking like, for what? In the future, I look at my kids, they're gonna foot this bill.
Mhm.
What was it, 3 trillion last time Trump signed? How much has the state spent, the towns, the schools? Anyways, it goes like this, and it's like, wait a minute, yeah, safety, great. It's good to be safe, but you do have to live, and you gotta look out for the next generation. What's going on here? What are we teaching these kids? Stay apart by be together by staying apart, masking up little 3-year-olds. I mean,
But I don't think
I think
children,
there's some kind of a psychological.
I don't think
that's
children
being
worried
raised.
about that as much as adults did.
What's that?
If they had to wear a mask or whatever. To them, it's,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
well, neither one of us are psychologists,
Exactly.
but I would differ with you on that. Anyways, that was
All
my
right.
rant
That was your
for
piece.
tonight.
All right,
guys
well,
left
thank
it
you.
non-public.
all right.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, have a good night.
You
Good
too.
night.
So we're gonna close that. Good night, Nicole. So, motion?
Make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A regarding legal matters.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.